Hi friends, my name is Miss Chloe, and today I'm going to be reading If I Ran the Zoo by Dr. Suess. You'll notice that this video looks pretty similar to what the Hop on Pop video will look like, and that's because I am filming this book right after I filmed this one. So I picked this book because I really liked the cover, and I'm interested to find out what would happen if he ran the zoo. I really like going to the zoo. Do you? Let's find out what would happen if he ran the zoo. I just want to start off by saying the guy's name in here, I think I'm saying it right, but I might not be, so I apologize if I'm not saying it right, but it's okay. It's a pretty good zoo, said young Gerald McGrew, and the fellow who runs it seems proud of it too. His hat says zoo on it, and this says lion, so that must mean that this is a lion. But if I ran the zoo, said young Gerald McGrew, I'd make a few changes. That's just what I would do. The lions and tigers and that kind of stuff they have up here are just not quite good enough. You see things like these in just any old zoo. They're awfully old-fashioned. I want something new. I wonder what new things he would put in his zoo. When I like going to the zoo, I like seeing the lion and tigers. Do you? So I'd open each cage, I'd unlock every pen, let the animals go, and start over again. And now, somehow or another, I think I could find some beast of much more unusual kind. You just let all the animals go. Does that look very safe to you? You can't just open up the cages and let all the animals go. This is just a silly book though, so it's okay. A four-footed lion's not much of a beast. The one in my zoo will have 10 feet at least. 5 legs on the left and 5 more on the right. Then people will stare and they'll say, "What a sight." This zookeeper, new keeper Gerald's, quite keen. That's the gold-darnest lion I've ever seen. That's a lion with 10 legs. That would be interesting to see. My new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will make people talk. My new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will make people gawk. Gawk just means look at, surprised, oh. At the strangest odd creatures that ever did walk, I'll get, for my zoo, a new sort of hen who roots in another hen's topknot, and then another one roosts in the topknot of his, and another one in his, and another in his, and so forth and upward and onward, and gee whiz. So a topknot is like someone's hair, on top of their head. So the hens just live on top of each other's head. That's funny. But that's just a start. I'll do better than that. They'll see me next day and my zookeeper cat coming into my zoo with an elephant cat. Look at that elephant cat. Have you ever seen an elephant cat before? I haven't. I don't think that's even possible. It might be though. I might be wrong. They'll be so surprised they all swallow their gum. They'll ask, when they see my strange animals come, where do you suppose he gets all these things from? His animals all have such very odd faces. I bet he must hunt them in rather odd places. And that's what I'll do, said young Gerald McGrew. If you want to catch beasts you don't see every day, you have to go places quite out of the way. You have to go places no others can get to. You have to get cold and you have to get wet too. Up past the North Pole where the froze winds squeal, I'll go and I'll hunt my skeekle mobile and bring back a family of what do you know? And that's how my new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will grow. Very interesting looking creatures right here. I've never seen anything like that. I'll hunt in the mountains of the Zomba Matant with helpers who all wear their eyes at a slant and capture a fine fluffy bird called the bustard, who only eats custard with sauce made of mustard, and also a very fine beast called flustered, who only eats mustard with sauce made of custard. Man. Truly, I don't really know what custard is. I'm gonna ask my Alexa. Alexa, what is custard? Let's see what she says.
According to Wikipedia, custard is a variety of culinary preparations based on sweetened milk, cheese, or cream cooked with egg or egg yolk to thicken it, and sometimes also flour, cornstarch, or gelatin. Depending on the recipe, custard may vary in consistency from a thin pouring sauce to the thick pastry cream used to fill eclairs.
So it can either be used as like a sauce or it can fill eclairs, which is kind of like a small donut almost that's filled with some sort of like, it's not ice cream necessarily. Oh, I guess it's custard. So it's not ice cream, but it's not like jelly either. Interesting. I didn't know what custard is. I'll catch 'em in caves and I'll catch 'em in brooks. I'll catch 'em in crannies. I'll catch 'em in nooks. And you don't read about in geography books. I'll catch 'em in countries that no one can spell, like the country of Moda Fall Pata Fa Pel. In a country like that, if a hunter is clever, he'll hunt up some beasts that you never ever saw. You know, the artwork in this book is beautiful. It's really cool to look at. I'll load up 5 boats with a family of jolts, whose feet are like cows, but wear squirrel skin coats, and sit down like dogs, but have voices like goats, expecting they can't sing the very high notes. Oh my gosh, some of these words are like tongue twisters. And then I'll go down to the winds of Nantucket and capture a family of lunks in a bucket, and then people will say, now I look like that boy heaps. His new zoo, McGrew Zoo, is growing by leaps. He captures them wild and captures them meek. He captures them slim and captures them sleek. What do you suppose he will capture next week? I'll capture one tiny, I'll capture one cute, I'll capture a deer that no one would shoot. A deer that's so nice he could sleep in your bed if it weren't for those horns that he had on his head. Look at the horns on the little deer's head. And then this says City Zoo McGrew M. It says GM Grew Manager. So, yeah. Would you want a deer like this to sleep in your bed? I feel like that might be a little unsafe. And speaking of horns that are just a bit queer, I'll bring back a very odd family of deer. A father, a mother, two sisters, a brother, whose horns are connected from one to another, whose horns are so mixed they can't tell them apart, can't tell where they'll end, and can't tell when they'll start. Each deer is mighty puzzled. He is never yet found if his horns are hers or the other way around. Look at the horns. You can't see whose horns is whose. And see, this one starts here, but then you don't really know like where it really goes to. I'll capture them fat and I'll capture them scrawny. I'll capture a scragglefoot mulligatawani. That's not a real word. I don't really know how to say that. A high-stepping animal, fast as the wind, from the blistering sands of the desert of Zin. This beast is a beast that can brave chieftain ride. Then they want to go fast to find some place to hide. Mulligatawini is fine for my zoo, so is a chieftain. I'll bring one back too. The mulligatawini and the chieftain, those aren't real things. But they do look like they would be cool in a zoo. In the far western part of southern East North Dakota lives a very fine animal called the Iota. But I'll capture one who is even much finer in the northeastern west part of South Carolina. When people see him, they will say, now by thunder, this new zoo, Maker Zoo, is really a wonder. Do you like its hair? I feel like it would be really soft. Like if you could like touch it, I feel like it would just be so soft. Most beasts are quite friendly, but still, in some lands, some beasts are too dangerous to catch with bare hands. For those that are ugly and vicious and mean, I'll build a bad animal catching machine. It's rather expensive to build such a kit, but with it a hunter can never be bit. So he had to build this machine for animals that maybe aren't very nice, so they can't hurt him. A zoo should have bugs, so I'll capture a feral whose legs are snarled up in terrible snarl. That's not a real thing, by the way. Some of these words are kind of difficult to say just because it's not a real word, so you kind of just have to make up how you say it. And then I'll go out and I'll capture some chugs, some keen shooter, mean shooter, bean shooter bugs. I wonder what they're shooting at each other. Like, is that water? Is that little rocks? What do you think? It's interesting. I'll go to the African island of Yurka and bring back a trizzle-top tuffle marzaka, a kind of canary with quite a tall throat. His neck is so long if he swallows an oat for breakfast the first day of April, they say it has to go down such a very long way that it gets to his stomach at the 15th of May. Wow, that's a long time. I'll bag a big bug who is very surprising, a feller who has a propelling for rising, a zooming around making cross-country hops from Texas to Boston with only 2 stumps. Now that sort of thing for a bug is just tops. When I've caught him, the next thing you know, I'll capture a wild tic-tac-toe with X's that win and the zeros that lose. He'll look mighty good in the zoo of McGrew's. I'll bring back a gusset, a jerkin, a gasket, and also a gooch from the wilds of Nantasket. And 8 Persian princesses will carry the basket, but what their names are, I don't know, so don't ask it. In a cave in Khartoum lives a beast called the Natch. That's no other hunter's been able to catch. He's hidden for years in a cave with a pout, and no one's been able to make him come out. But I'll coax him out with a wonderful meal that's cooked by my cooks in the cooker mobile. They'll fix up a dish that is just to his taste. 3 chicken croquettes, make a library paste, then sprinkled with peanut shucks, pickled and spiced, then baked at 600 degrees, and then iced. It's mighty hard cooking to cook up such a feast, but that's how New Zoo, McGrew Zoo, gets beast. So they have their cooker mobile, and then one of the cooks going over climbed up the tree to serve that creature. So he'll come to the zoo. I'll go to the faraway mountains of Tobusk, near the river of Nusk, and I'll bring back an Ubsk, a sort of kind of thingamabobs who can eat rhubarb and corn on the copse. Then people will flock to my Zuna Moss. McGrew, they will say, does a wonderful jobsk. He hunts with such vim, and he hunts with such vigor. His new zoo, McGrew Zoo, gets bigger and bigger. And this is an OPSP. OPSP. I don't really know how to say that. Oh, I've got the hiccups. Excuse me. In speaking of birds, there's the Russian paluski, whose head ski is red ski and belly is blue ski. I'll get one of them for my Zooski McGrewski. Then the whole town will gasp, why, this boy never sleeps. No keeper before ever kept what he does. There's no telling what that young feller will do. And then, just to show them, I'll sail to K True and bring back an Kutch, a Preeper, and a Prue, a Nirkle, a Nerd, and a Seersucker too. Would you like to go see those animals in the zoo? This one doesn't look very nice. I'll hunt in the jungle of hippo no hungus, and I'll bring back a flock of wild boob no bungas. The bippo no bungas from hippo nungus are better than those down in dippo do dungus and smarter than those in nippo no nungus, and that's why I'll catch them in hippo no hungus instead of those in the nungus and dungus. The people will say when they see these bippos bounding, this zookeeper, newskeeper, is simply astounding. He travels so far that you'd think he would drop. When do you suppose this young fellow will stop? Stop. Well, I should. But I won't stop until I've captured the Fizza-ma-wizza-ma-dill, the world's biggest bird from the island of Gwark, who only eats pine trees and spits out the bark. And boy, when I get him back home to my pack, the whole world will say, young McGrew's made his mark. He's built a zoo better than Noah's whole ark. These wonderful, marvelous beasts that he chooses have made him the greatest of all McGrews. That's the bird that he wants to take back to his zoo. It's a big bird. McGrew's Zoo. Wow, they all cheer. What's the zoo must be worth? It's a gull old darnest zoo in the face of the earth. Look at all the things in the zoo. That looks like a lot of really cool things to see in a zoo. I would like to go see this zoo. Yes, that's what I do, said young Gerald McGrew. I'd make a few changes if I ran the zoo. Do you think that's only a few changes? Because I feel like that's a lot more than just a few. The end. Did you end up liking McGrew's Zoo? Like, would you go see it? I think I would go see McGrew's Zoo. I think if I ran the zoo, like McGrew did, I would try to find some interesting animals too. What would you do? Would you put in your favorite animal? Would you put in big animals? Would you put in small animals? What would you do? Think about that. Bye, friends. I hope you have a good day. I hope you enjoyed the book.